Over the years, I've come to understand that the difference between those who win and those who wait isn't talent or luck or background. It's mindset. The way you think determines the way you act, and the way you act determines what you build. You don't get what you want. You get what you're willing to work for, what you're disciplined enough to stay with, and what you're mentally strong enough to keep pursuing when things get hard. So I want to share with you a message. Not about quick success, not about shortcuts, but about the habits, the thinking, and the philosophy that separates those who wish from those who achieve. Take this not just as advice, but as an invitation to raise your standards, sharpen your mindset, and move forward. Deliberately, daily, and without hesitation. First, the power of mindset. Let me tell you something that took me years to understand, but once I did, it changed everything. Mindset is the gateway to success. It's not how much talent you have. It's not the luck you were born into. It's not how much your cousin can loan you to get started. It's how you think. It's how you respond when things don't go your way. That's what makes or breaks the people who win. And those who wait. Winners don't wish. They work. They don't wait. They move. They don't get caught up in all the reasons why it might not work. They're too focused on finding the one reason it will, because they understand something important. Your life is shaped not by conditions, but by decisions. The way you think determines the way you act, and the way you act determines what you get. Now, most people never stop to evaluate their own thinking. They let their thoughts happen to them like a breeze passing through the trees. But winners train their thinking like a muscle. They examine it. They challenge it. They don't just think positively. They think powerfully. See, thinking positively is nice, but thinking powerfully is transformational. It means you don't just say, I hope it works. You say, I'll make it work. Instead of, what if I fail? You say, what will I learn when I do? That kind of mindset isn't about hype. It's about discipline. And here's where most people go wrong. They believe that their feelings should guide their actions. But let me offer you a better strategy. Let your philosophy guide your actions. Winners aren't driven by how they feel. They're driven by what they know. They know that fear is normal. They know that failure is feedback. They know that comfort is a trap. And they've trained their minds to act anyway. There's a difference between hope and commitment. Hope is nice, it's emotional. But commitment is mental. It's internal. It says, I'm going to show up even if I don't feel like it. I'm going to push through even if it's hard. I'm going to move forward no matter what the odds say. That's mindset. That's power. You can have all the resources in the world, money, support, even education. But if your mind is weak, you'll find a way to sabotage all of it. On the other hand, you can start with very little, but if your mind is strong, you'll find a way to multiply what you've got. Because you're not counting on conditions. You're counting on yourself. Next, don't negotiate with your goals. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned about success is this. Once you've made a decision about your goals, stop reopening the case. Don't go back and forth with yourself. Don't wake up every morning and put your commitment on trial. If you do, your goals become suggestions instead of standards. The people who move forward in life are the ones who made a decision once, and they honor it daily. That decision becomes part of their identity. It's not a conversation anymore. It's not a debate. It's already been settled. The answer is yes, every single time. Most people live their lives in negotiation mode. They get up and immediately start reasoning with themselves. Should I get up early today? Do I really feel like working out? Maybe I'll do that important task later. The longer the conversation goes on, the more likely comfort wins. And if comfort keeps winning, progress will lose. Winners don't have that conversation anymore. They've already decided. They don't waste their energy trying to convince themselves to take action. They just take action. They understand that discipline isn't about feeling like it. It's about doing it because it's who you are now. Success becomes possible when you start living by principle, not preference. When your actions are based on what you committed to, not how you feel in the moment, your feelings will change day to day. Your mood may rise and fall, but your decision to follow through should stay steady. That's how consistency is built. That's how confidence is built. That's how character is built. If you're serious about reaching your goals, you've got to remove hesitation from the process. Stop giving yourself the option to quit. Stop creating space for excuses to live. Because the more space you give them, the louder they become. The key is to eliminate negotiation and replace it with resolve. Discipline isn't something that shows up in big, heroic moments. It shows up in quiet decisions, when no one's watching. It shows up when you say no to the comfort of the couch and yes to the discomfort of growth. It shows up when you don't feel like doing the work, but you do it anyway. This way of living doesn't happen by accident. It happens because you chose to lead yourself. You chose to create structure in a world full of distraction. You chose to make your standards more important than your feelings. And once you live like that, you stop needing motivation. You've got something better. You've got momentum. Most people never get momentum because they never get moving. They hesitate, delay, overthink. Every time they go back and forth, they weaken their ability to commit. They teach themselves to wait. They train their mind to look for comfort instead of results. But once you shut that negotiation down, everything starts to shift. You begin to show up differently. You follow through faster. You build trust with yourself. And when you trust yourself, you don't need external motivation to get going. You already know. You will do what you said you'd do. Discipline isn't punishment. It's proof. Proof that you've made your goals a priority. Proof that you're leading yourself. Proof that your word means something to others and to yourself. And when your word carries weight, your actions carry power. Next, act whether you feel like it or not. There's a fundamental rule when it comes to achievement. Don't let your emotions run your life. Winners understand this early on. They don't wait until they feel like working. They work. They don't wait until they're inspired. They act. And by acting consistently, they create the very results others spend their whole lives wishing for. Most people operate backwards. They believe they need to feel motivated before they move. But that's not how momentum is built. Action creates emotion, not the other way around. You don't start with energy. You create energy by moving. The longer you wait for the right feeling to show up, the more likely you are to do nothing at all. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself, I'll do it later when I'm in the right headspace? And how many of those later turned into never? The problem isn't your goals. It's the reliance on mood to drive behavior. And moods are unreliable. They change with the weather, with sleep, with stress. If you build your life around how you feel, you're building it on sand. Winners take a different path. They don't ask themselves if they feel like doing it. They already know the answer doesn't matter. They've committed. They show up regardless. Their consistency isn't based on passion. It's based on principle. This is the difference between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs are driven by how they feel. Professionals are driven by what they've decided. That's why professionals succeed even on bad days. Their effort isn't tied to emotion. It's tied to identity. To get there, you must train yourself to take action in the absence of inspiration. Get up early when you'd rather sleep in. Do the workout when your body says no. Make the call, finish the task, do the hard thing, especially when it's inconvenient. The more you practice that, the more you build mental toughness. And mental toughness is what makes everything else possible. The truth is, your future doesn't care if you're tired. Your goals don't care if you're in the mood. The results you're chasing are waiting on your actions, not your attitude. That doesn't mean your emotions aren't real. It means you don't let them decide the direction of your life. When you begin to act without waiting for the perfect conditions, you take control back from your feelings. You stop being a prisoner of your own moods. You become someone your future can count on. You don't have to feel strong to act strong. You don't have to feel ready to take the first step. All you need is a decision and the willingness to follow through. This way of living might feel hard at first, but over time it becomes easier. The more you do what you said you'd do, the more trust you build with yourself. And once you've built that trust, you stop relying on motivation. You don't need hype. You don't need inspiration. You've already developed the habit of following through. That's what separates the winners from the wanderers. Winners have taught themselves to act whether they feel like it or not, because they know. Feelings come and go. But discipline stays. Next, fear means you're on the right path. Fear is something we all feel. It shows up when you try to grow, when you start something new, or when you step outside what's comfortable. But let me tell you something important. Fear doesn't always mean stop. Sometimes it means go. It means you're heading in the right direction. Most people make the mistake of interpreting fear as a warning to back off. They think, if I feel afraid, maybe I'm not ready. That kind of thinking will rob you of every opportunity worth chasing. Fear is natural. It shows up when you're about to do something meaningful. If you only move when you feel brave, you'll rarely move at all. Winners understand this. They don't try to eliminate fear before they act. They act with fear present. And that's the real courage. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the willingness to keep moving even when fear is in the room. That's where character is formed. That's where breakthroughs are born. You can't grow without stretching. And you can't stretch without some discomfort. Fear is often a sign that you're expanding, that you're getting close to something that matters. The bigger the goal, the more resistance you'll feel. That resistance isn't a sign to quit. It's confirmation that you're doing something your old self never dared to do. Now, most people wait for fear to go away before they take action. But fear doesn't leave on its own. You have to walk through it. You've got to act while your knees are shaking, while your voice is trembling, while your mind is screaming for safety. Because once you move through fear, you realize it wasn't as powerful as you thought. The act of facing it weakens it. And each time you do, you become stronger. That's how confidence is built. Not by avoiding fear, but by overcoming it. You prove to yourself that you can handle it. You gain evidence that you're capable. And with that evidence comes a shift. Fear no longer becomes something to escape, but something to lean into. Winners don't run from fear, they study it. They use it. They see it as feedback. It shows them where the edge is. And they go to that edge, not away from it. They understand that everything they want is on the other side of it. Better results, deeper relationships, more meaningful work, greater self-respect. You don't get that by staying in the shallow end of life. You get that by diving into deep water and learning how to swim under pressure. You don't become resilient by protecting yourself. You become resilient by exposing yourself. Strategically, intentionally, courageously. If you avoid everything that scares you, you'll never become the person you were meant to be. You'll live a life shaped by fear rather than by vision. But if you face what you fear, if you walk toward what makes you uncomfortable, you'll find strength you didn't know was there. You'll discover that fear doesn't control you anymore. You've taken that power back. It's okay to feel fear. It's not okay to let it decide your future. Don't wait for fear to disappear before you move. Move anyway. That's the way forward. That's the winner's path. Next, you don't need permission to succeed. If you're waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to succeed, let me save you some time. You're going to be waiting a long time. One of the biggest breakthroughs in life happens when you realize that you don't need anyone's permission to go after what you want. Not from your parents, not from your friends, not from society, not from anyone. Most people are trapped in a pattern of seeking approval. They want validation before they move forward. They want the people around them to say, "That's a great idea," or "You're definitely ready," before they act. But success doesn't work that way. The world isn't in the business of handing out permission slips. If you want to win, you have to give yourself the green light. Now, that's not always easy. From an early age, we're taught to fit in, follow rules, stay within limits. That kind of training can make us afraid to stand out. It conditions us to wait, to hold back, to shrink ourselves. But if you want to rise above average, you have to stop playing by the rules of average thinking. You have to stop waiting for consensus before you move. The people who accomplish extraordinary things are the ones who act even when no one understands them. They pursue their goals even when the people around them don't get it. They take the leap even when the crowd says it's too risky. And they do it not because they're fearless, but because they've made a decision that their life matters more than someone else's opinion. You'll find that as you start to grow, not everyone will cheer for you. Some people will question your choices. Some will doubt your ability. Others may even try to pull you back. Not because they're evil, but because your growth makes them uncomfortable. It challenges the version of you they're used to. And sometimes it reflects back their own fear. That's why you can't live for approval. It's a moving target. It changes with people's moods, biases, and limitations. You can't tie your destiny to someone else's expectations. If you do, you'll live a life that looks good to them but feels wrong to you. And at the end of the day, you're the one who has to live with the results. Winners don't ask, "Do you think I should do this?" They ask, "What do I need to become to do this well?" Their focus is on development, not permission. They're building the habits, the discipline, and the resilience it takes to win, not waiting for applause to make the next move. You don't need to explain your dreams to everyone. You don't need to justify your goals. And you certainly don't need a crowd to believe in you before you take action. You only need one person to believe, and that's you. Once you make the decision to stop seeking approval and start chasing purpose, your life begins to open up. You stop hesitating. You stop apologizing. You stop watering down your potential. You begin to live with direction, with power, with clarity. Next, guard your focus like a fortune. One of the most overlooked assets in your life isn't money, talent, or even time. It's focus. What you choose to give your attention to, day in and day out, shapes the results you get. The people who win in life aren't always the smartest or the most talented. They're just the ones who learn how to direct their energy with precision. They protect their focus like it's worth something. Because it is. The world today is full of noise. Everywhere you turn, someone wants your attention. Apps, ads, endless opinions, constant updates. And the more you allow yourself to be pulled in every direction, the less progress you make in any direction. Most people are busy, but they're not productive. They're active, but not effective. That's because their focus is being scattered. Winners understand that being available to everything makes you valuable to nothing. You can't build something meaningful if your attention is constantly being hijacked by the urgent instead of the important. You can't move forward if you're always being pulled sideways. That's why you have to be intentional. You have to decide what deserves your energy and what doesn't. You can't leave that choice up to circumstance or emotion. You have to create boundaries. You have to say no to what looks good so you can say yes to what's great. Focus isn't just about what you do. It's about what you stop doing. One of the reasons most people don't see meaningful progress is because they keep switching lanes. They get excited about something, start it, then get distracted by something else. They chase new ideas without finishing the old ones. They never stay with one thing long enough to master it. And without mastery, you don't build momentum. Winners pick a direction and go deep. They commit, they eliminate distractions, they simplify, and they focus on consistent execution. They don't try to do 10 things at once. They do a few things well, and they do them over and over again. This level of focus requires discipline. It requires saying no when it's tempting to say yes. It requires turning off the noise so you can hear your own thoughts. It means creating space in your life to think, plan, execute, and recover. Focus doesn't happen by accident. It's the result of daily decisions. Are you opening your day with purpose, or are you reacting to everything around you? Are you investing your time in tasks that move the needle, or are you just staying busy so you feel productive? The difference between movement and progress is focus. Once you begin to take control of your focus, you'll notice something else. It becomes easier to stay committed. You're no longer pulled by every distraction. You're guided by your priorities. You get more done in less time. You feel more clear, more grounded, more in control. That's how winners operate. They've trained themselves to treat focus as a limited resource, not an endless supply. They've built routines that protect their mental space. They've eliminated what drains them so they can pour more into what matters. Next, failure is a gift in disguise. Failure is one of those words that makes most people flinch. It sounds final. It feels heavy. But the truth is, failure is a necessary part of success, not a sign that you're broken, not proof that you're not good enough. It's just a message. A feedback mechanism, a step in the process. Every person who has ever built something worthwhile has failed, often repeatedly. The difference between winners and everyone else is how they respond to it. Most people take failure personally. They think it means they're not cut out for success. They carry it like a label, and they wear it like a weight. But winners see failure differently. They know it's not a verdict. It's a teacher. If you fail and don't learn, that's a waste. But if you fail and extract the lesson, that's growth. You gain wisdom you couldn't get any other way, experience you couldn't fake, clarity you didn't have before. And you don't get that kind of insight by playing it safe. You earn it by showing up, taking the risk, and being willing to try again. Winners don't avoid failure. They get familiar with it. They study it. They get curious. They ask questions. What didn't work? Where did I hesitate? What can I adjust next time? They don't get stuck in the emotional story. They go to work on the structure. They refine, improve, and keep moving. Failure isn't the enemy. Inaction is. Fear of failure stops more people than failure itself ever could. And ironically, the people who avoid failure the most are often the ones who end up living with the most regret, because they never gave themselves permission to try. If you're not failing, you're probably not stretching. You're probably not risking. You're probably not putting yourself in enough situations where real growth can happen. Playing it safe might feel comfortable, but it keeps you small. And you weren't meant to stay small. Most people never realize that failure is a filter. It separates those who are truly committed from those who are just curious. If you're only in it when it's easy, you won't last. But if you're in it for the long haul, failure is simply part of the journey. You learn to expect it, and more importantly, you learn to rise from it. Getting knocked down doesn't mean you're out. It just means you're human. What counts is how fast you get back up. What counts is that you don't let a single moment define the rest of your life. Winners know they don't have to be perfect. They just have to be persistent. If something didn't work, it doesn't mean you're not enough. It might mean the strategy needs work. It might mean the timing was off. It might mean the approach has to be refined. But none of that means you're a failure. It just means you're still learning. And the faster you learn, the faster you move forward. Next, train your environment or it will train you. You become the product of your surroundings. It's unavoidable. The people you talk to, the content you consume, the spaces you spend time in. These all shape how you think, how you feel, and eventually how you act. That's why one of the most important responsibilities you have is to build and manage your environment with intention. Most people never do this. They walk through life reacting to what's around them instead of shaping it. They absorb attitudes, habits, and beliefs from others without realizing it. They stay connected to people who complain constantly, settle for less, or make excuses. And little by little, their own standards start to drop. You can't rise to your potential if you're surrounded by what pulls you down. Negativity, distraction, drama, it all chips away at your focus and your self-belief. You start thinking smaller, dreaming less, and settling more. And not because that's who you are, but because your environment trained you to think that way. Winners do the opposite. They build an environment that supports their vision. They're selective about who they allow into their space. They surround themselves with people who stretch them, not shrink them. People who tell them the truth, not just what's comfortable. People who live with discipline, not just intention. And it's not just about people. It's also about systems. How do you start your day? What are you feeding your mind first thing in the morning? Do your routines serve your goals or just fill your time? Your environment includes your habits, your calendar, your digital inputs. If it's cluttered with low-value activity, you'll get low-value results. Taking control of your environment is a daily discipline. It's not a one-time decision. It means being willing to clean house, to step back from relationships that no longer align with your direction, to turn off the distractions that dilute your focus, to rearrange your day so it reflects your values, not just your obligations. This isn't always easy. Sometimes the very people who care about you are also the ones who hold you back. Not on purpose, but because they're not growing themselves. And when you start to grow, it reminds them that they haven't moved. That can cause resistance. It can lead to judgment, misunderstanding, even guilt. But you can't live your life trying to keep everyone comfortable. You're not responsible for their comfort. You're responsible for your future. You don't have to cut people off to move forward. But you do have to choose your influence. Who are you listening to? Who are you modeling? What messages are you letting into your mind? These are not small decisions. They're shaping everything about your thinking. And your thinking shapes everything about your life. If you want to stay sharp, stay committed, and stay growing, then your environment has to match your intention. It has to support the level you're trying to reach. And if it doesn't yet, start adjusting it today. Change what you consume. Change who you spend your time with. Change what your daily space looks and feels like. The moment you stop shaping your environment is the moment it starts shaping you. And if you're not careful, it will shape you into something that looks nothing like what you're capable of becoming. Take that control back. Train your environment to reflect your highest standard, and you'll start to notice. You think clearer, you move faster, and you build a life that's aligned with the person you truly want to become.